Talk to us first about this particular business development hub that is being launched, because what are the use cases that you're envisaging it being put forward to in society?
Well, there's two things that C4DR will do. One is it will help corporates and startups figure out how to take advantage of these pioneering technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. But the other side is we're going to help society and government figure out how to cope with the impact of that and actually thrive. Something we believe is that technology, we should be the masters of the technology and use it for good in society. But we don't really know what to do yet. So C4DR will be creating a series of experiments to figure out what society can do to help cope with the effect of and use to our advantage these technologies.
I mean, you were, of course, an advisor to the government on blockchain in particular. I mean, was it almost a reverse inquiry here? You saw that the government wasn't quite understanding the applications of this new modern technology and how in which it could be used to address this new change that we see upon us?
So governments and large institutions will always be slower to adopt new technologies. Even things like blockchain, which just only a few years ago were, blockchain and Bitcoin was the money launderer's weapon of choice. Until, of course, the government wrote that absolutely seminal white paper to say opportunity blockchain for government to create efficiencies. So once these technologies go through their, the challenging initial cycle of being slightly Wild West, to start to be useful for efficiencies for companies and society, that's when you see standards emerging and use cases that are so profound.
So Eric, I can see that this is already, though, quite a crowded space. I'm looking at Microsoft Ventures. If you're into AI, you could go to that particular accelerator. Perhaps you could go to Level 39, your old haunt, if you're doing Bitcoin and blockchain. Why come to you?
So we're creating a new model, slightly different. We're going to be co-investing with corporates to help build entirely new companies. So we're sharing the risk with them. This is really an interesting model. The first one...
What sort of amounts would you fund of a startup?
So right the way from seed all the way to growth. Obviously, we're a younger business, and so we don't have as much capital as the bigger companies. But we take our stake by taking risk early stage with them in the growth. And we announced the first one with Swisscom. And we're going to be doing a very interesting, can't say exactly what it is, but it's a blockchain-related innovation with them, and we'll let you know how that goes.
Then talk to us, therefore. You've got the corporates joining, co-investing, funds being raised. I'm also very interested in the Cocoon Networks Innovation Centre. Now, this is where the hub that you're creating, first of all in London, is actually going to be based within their hub of London. Chinese-backed international investment platform. You say the first of its kind. What's interesting about this?
What's interesting about this is that the Cocoon Networks, as our partner, are as determined as we are to help crack the code on how European and UK companies can, more satisfactorily expand to China. When you think about it, there's 2 or 3 unicorns a year that come out of the UK and Europe. But if we had real access to the Chinese market, it could double that. So that's what Cocoon Networks are very interested in.
And this is just one of the first of many hubs. Where else are we looking to expand this?
So C4DR is establishing itself in London, in Zurich, and in Shanghai initially. But we are in discussions, and we're only 3 days old today. We've already had incredible response from around the world who also want to discuss with us the opportunity of bringing C4DR to their city. And
while you're here, I mean, I have to ask more about your experience, having worked in the UK so well, having worked within Level 39, particularly in fintech. We're about to have a UK election.
Yep.
We are at the point of seeing Brexit potentially being pushed through. How much do you think startups are still very much keen to be expanding in London, and it's still the best place to be?
The advantages that London brings are not going to go away overnight, regardless of what happens about Brexit. In fact, it's interesting because an entrepreneur's mind is whatever you throw at them, their job is to figure out how to cope, isn't it? And to adapt. And so when you think about some of the companies that have started, even overseas, come here and then grown, they've had access to the talent, the investment, some of the biggest single markets, English-speaking, say, for our US companies, always choosing the UK as the first landing point into Europe. Things will change. Entrepreneurs will have to figure out how to get licensed in more territories. But they'll do that because the advantages of being here will still outweigh the disadvantages.
And also on a day like today, where we see these sorts of calls from geopolitical leaders, the G7, against tech juggernauts such as Facebook and Google, which many call London their European headquarters. Yeah. Where do you see, particularly in this time of electioneering, the digital role within society at the moment, within the world of very sad effects of terror attacks and the like? Is tech responding in the way it should? And are we seeing tech a force for good or in terms sometimes for the negative?
See, I heard today's calls and I thought that I didn't think of them as an attack against the tech company giants. I thought of them as society, through our leaders, explaining the world that we want to live in. That's more what it is. And bear in mind that all of this technology is so new. It is less, in some cases, than 10 years old. So we have to learn the best practice to be able to use these for society in the right way. And what those leaders were doing was calling for measures to improve the way that these technologies are used.
And the companies will respond, do you think?
Oh, they should. They should certainly listen, or they certainly are listening. And in many cases, they are responding. And the ones that want to continue to thrive will do so. What we don't want is thought police. What we do want is a safe place, a safe and actually enriching environment for ourselves and our children.